Joining us today to talk about the 9-2 Minnesota Vikings is NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Tom, I'm sure you had all eyes and ears on the Vikings-Bears game. What impressed you the most about that victory?
So, kind of a funny story. So, I actually had a wedding in Ojai, California this past weekend. So then I drove in to do game day morning at like 6 a.m.
Oh
Pacific.
my goodness.
It was a bride and groom who are from Minnesota. She's actually, her family's Packers fans, but my buddy's a Vikings fan. And so I'm in a pack. I'm at LAX with a pack of Vikings
Oh
fans
wow.
watching it. Everybody's on their phone or their tablet or somewhere in the bars. And if you know about like the delays that you get, like you're hearing the cheering and things, like the reactions at different times. We're like, what was it? What was it? I mean, it was a wild finish. It was one of several wild finishes at that point. You look at a team like the Bears, and they've lost this year on a Hail Mary, a blocked field goal, and now just kind of a general special teams calamity. The Vikings, as they have really throughout under Kevin O'Connell, these are the games that they find ways to win. They haven't had very many blowout wins. I remember Justin Jefferson said earlier this year, I think it was the Texans game, it's the first time he'd ever gotten to come off the field early because they're always, they win these close
Yeah.
games. But there's something to be said for, I know Kevin preaches a lot about situational football. They have done that and played that at a really high level. And they found a way to execute and get a win in a place that, historically has been tough for them and everybody else to go win.
Definitely. I mean, 3 straight road victories is something that is not to be overlooked. When you think
Yeah.
about the job that Kevin O'Connell has done this season, how strong is his case for Coach of the Year?
Well, I know that Kevin probably still might harbor a little tiny grudge about 2022 when he got 0 votes, despite turning around the Vikings and getting them into the playoffs that season. I mean, Kevin's one of the top coaches in the NFL. He's going to be in Minnesota probably about as long as he wants to be in Minnesota. I do think that the job that he's done, has been impressive here. And I think that, even fanning that out, the job that the Vikings in general, including the front office, did to restock the roster was really impressive here. I mean, going back to March, and I've said this a couple of times in recent days, I don't think that anybody nationally was sitting back and going, boy, Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones after he got cut, Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, and Andrew Van Ginkel. Boy, the Vikings won free agency. Like, no, nobody was saying that, but they've got a vision in terms of what they want this team to be. I know Kevin was really confident in what Sam Darnold could do. He had a little bit of experience in the system with San Francisco, but he's playing the best football that he's ever played in his life, and a lot of that is coaching. He's got some good weapons around him. Defensively, Flo's obviously done a remarkable job with a defense that, again, Grenard playing at a really high level. Van Ginkel has a pick six every week. Harrison Smith is, going strong at 35, 36, whatever he is. But, it's not like you're dealing with a defense that you'd say is the most star-studded in the league, but they're finding ways. It's really impressive all around. I definitely think that Kevin is among the candidates who should be under consideration for the award.
It's funny you say that because he has brought up a few times this season how he remembers how people were talking about the Vikings in the offseason.
Yeah.
And now they're 9-2. What do you think the national conversation, or what is the national conversation surrounding the Vikings right now?
The funny thing there was the Vikings definitely enjoyed that in this offseason that everybody was picking them to finish third or fourth in the division. Here they are, like you said, they're 9-2. They're still right, basically even with the Packers there. That's the challenge right now. I think you can make a pretty objective argument that three of the top 4 teams in the entire NFC are all in the North Division. So I don't think the people still are talking about the Vikings. Once they got off to the start they did, at 5-0, I believe it was, you had to start recognizing them and talking about, things came up, Sam Darnold MVP, then they lost a couple of games. And then it was, oh, is this, they're coming back to reality. But once again, they came off, they had that mini bye there and they started to, push forward and play at a really high level. I still think that most people, if you're fanning this out to around the country, everyone's going to say right now the Lions or maybe the Eagles are the top team. The Packers would be the next one up, and then the Vikings maybe are fourth. Which again, when you're 9-2, I think you kind of like that. You don't have all the expectations on you. They've been playing the disrespect card. You're absolutely right. Going back to the start of the season, but they're in the thick of it right now. They should be, barring, some kind of crazy circumstances, they're going to be in the playoffs. The real challenge now for them is, hey, you still got the division out there for you, and in the NFL. finding a way to win your division and getting that home game or multiple home games is a huge deal. I mean, you could win. Vikings could go 12-5 and not win the division, and they're going to have to go on the road and face
Mm-hmm.
a team like whether it's Atlanta or the Bucks or the Seahawks or the 49ers or the Cardinals team that they're going to see on Sunday. Every week matters right now. This is already playoff type football for the Vikings because they don't just want to, get into the playoffs and, take a victory lap on that. They had that a couple of years ago. You lose at home to the Giants, and it didn't, sit well through the entire offseason. This team has big aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
They got to keep pushing every weekend. Starts against Arizona.
Yeah, there's only 6 games remaining, which is wild to be saying at this point right now. I feel like the season has flown by, and you do mention a great point. It's like they have this pressure that they have to keep up with the Lions that they're continuously doing. So up next is the Cardinals coming off that tough loss against Seattle after they had a bye week. They're going to be rearing and ready to go for their second straight road game. What are your expectations, or what do you hope to see in that matchup on Sunday?
Well, first of all, I'd say, that Cardinals-Seahawks game, which again, I was a little more in and out because I was on a plane the entire
Yeah.
time, and you're trying to catch the cut-ins and get red zone to work long enough on the in-flight Wi-Fi to pick up on it. But, just even looking at the stats and watching the recaps too, to me, that game said a lot more about the Seahawks in terms of what they're becoming, because they had a bad stretch there defensively. They gave up 29 points at home and lost to the Giants. Mike McDonald's a defensive guy. They made a big trade for Ernest Jones. They're really making strides on that side. And this is kind of how they want to win. They want their offense to get better, but they shut down a Cardinals offense that's been really good. So they've got, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison. They've been playing at a high level, through the early portion of the season. James Conner is still one of the underrated running backs in the NFL.
Yeah.
They got a really good tight end there as well. There's a lot of people with Minnesota ties on that staff as well. Obviously, not just Jonathan Gannon, but Drew Petzing, who was a former Vikings assistant, is the OC. Nick Rawlis, who's a former Vikings assistant, is the DC. Monty Ossenforth, the general manager, is from, I think, Zimmerman, if I'm not mistaken, Minnesota. Zimmerman is Zumbrota, something with a Z. At any rate, you got a lot of familiar faces that are going to be coming into this building. It's going to be a challenge because, as much as anything, and again, I think Petzing is going to be a head coaching candidate in this offseason. He's done a good job with the offense. They ran into Seahawks defense that's playing really well. But the way that the Cardinals have played on defense with Gannon and Rawlis running things, it's been really impressive. They're gonna have a fight on their hands, and it might be a little bit of a slugfest on Sunday.
KOC said that Kyler Murray is playing elite ball right now. What have you seen from him?
I would say Kyler is certainly back to health. That's the biggest thing. Last year, he tore the ACL at the end of the 2022 season, and then in 2023, he missed, about half the year and then came back. And he was still kind of working his way back in. When I went through there in training camp, everybody was saying, like, Kyler looks like himself again. And you saw him, and physically, he's fully back in shape. He's obviously not a tall guy. I'm not going to call him short because he's not that much shorter than me, but he's a thickly built dude, and he looked like he was back physically to the way that we've seen him look in the past. And he's still got all that wiggle. He's still got the elusiveness. He can still do all those things. They've got him playing more efficiently because the background for Petzing is in not quite the same offense that Kevin O'Connell runs, but there are a lot of similarities to it here. And they've gotten him to play efficient football. Again, coming off a tough game, tough environment last week in Seattle, but I would fully anticipate that, we're going to get the best of Kyler on Sunday.
Definitely. I do want to ask you one more question before we let you go about Sam Darnold. Bringing it back to the Vikings quarterback, who I'm sure you had several conversations with the front office, Ryan Grigson, Kwesi, Kevin O'Connell, about why they brought him in and their reasonings. When you were listening to that back in, gosh, it feels like forever again, but it was like, what, July, August? Seeing it play out the way it has, how much of that did you expect?
Well, I think that it goes all the way back even further than that to, and you can find the tape on this on game day morning, Super Bowl Sunday,
Okay.
which I think was in Vegas, but all, time is a flat circle in this industry. I can't remember if that's what the Super Bowl was. We're on the field, and I said that the Vikings' plan was likely going to be, you're going to draft a quarterback, but you're also going to need a veteran, so you're going to get a guy who can potentially be this year's Baker Mayfield. And the one name I mentioned in that segment, because he happened to be in the game, was Sam Darnold. Everything I heard at that time was, this is exactly the type of project that they were looking for. A guy who's got all the physical ability. He's got some foundation now in the offense because he's worked with Kyle Shanahan, and he's a guy who can step in and start, at least in the short term, while you get a rookie ready. Well, once J.J. McCarthy got injured in training camp and he had the meniscus surgery, he's missing this season. I know he had, an additional procedure, if you want to call it that. But it was really, not a super invasive thing. Doesn't change his timeline. He should be back by camp next year. But that took the pressure off Sam Darnold of, oh, how long is it going to be? You throw a couple picks. Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy out there? What they saw in Sam Darnold was a guy who there was nothing stopping him except his own decision making at times. The knock on Sam Darnold all along has been looks really good in practice, but when the game is live, all of a sudden he starts to the processing isn't there, and he'll make a couple of catastrophic errors that crush you and wipe out all the good that he does in the course of the game. We've seen a little bit of that. We've seen Sam, take some chances, but a lot of quarterbacks are going to put a ball or two in harm's way. At times he's gotten away with it. There have been a couple of games where he has not. But he's living up to be what he was supposed to be coming out with the Jets. And you think about his career journey from, the Jets were, coming from USC as well, where he threw a lot of picks his final season, which is kind of the same thing, goes to the Jets, then goes to the Panthers. Really getting with Kyle Shanahan was the first time he had a stable type of an environment to develop. He's absolutely maxing out what they saw, which was a guy who's a perfect fit for the system, has all the physical tools. If they can just get him mentally where he needs to be, well, for the most part, it's looked like Sam Darnold is exactly there. He's on a one-year contract. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but for a guy on a one-year contract, I would think that he would be motivated if the opportunity's there to remain the Vikings starting quarterback, at least at the start in 2025. The money's got to be right as well. I would certainly think the Vikings are open to bringing him back, while also knowing, they do anticipate J.J. McCarthy is going to be ready to roll. Might benefit him to sit for a little bit next season, but he's ultimately going to be the guy, and that's going to be, Sam Darnold's future is going to be one of the big storylines in this offseason, and after what I'm sure you and Vikings fans hope is a very deep playoff run.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I would love that. However, I do think that the front office is already thinking about that, even though we don't have to, which is pretty nice. So, Tom, where can they find you on Sunday morning to watch your reports from US Bank Stadium?
I will be on the field at US Bank Stadium. I'll be up bright and early doing a hit inside the Vikings locker room. Game day morning, 8 a.m. to noon Central Time on NFL Network.
All right. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you there. Maybe you'll bring us a little bit of luck this weekend.
You got it.